On today's show, the trade deadline is rapidly approaching. I'll tell you where the Mavericks stand and why it's time to buy low on PJ Washington in a trade. And more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
How about 10 Mavericks? NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show. Make it Locked On Mavs your first listen today, where the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review, like the video, and comment anything below. Let me know in the comment section which player do you want the Mavericks to trade for. Give me a trade in the comments. I'm collecting them all today. I got to catch them all. Let me know in the comment section. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Flying solo today. Wanted to talk all about trades, and I wanted to get into a bunch of trades that you guys sent me because there's just a bunch of trade things to get into. There's just so many. So I've got some rapid fire ones at the end. Drummond, Grimes has been mentioned before. Dorian and Dinwiddie. Got a couple of those I want to bring up a little later. And so we'll talk about some of those. Got some of the Wizards guys that you guys have thrown some trades out, and I'll talk through some of those. And do I feel like any of the Wizards trades, Gafford, Kuzma, Denny Avdia, do I feel like any of those could happen? And I definitely want to get into PJ Washington because I do think it's time to buy low on PJ. But I want to start here. Let's start with just where the Mavericks are as the trade deadline approaches. You need a little bit of a primer where the Mavs are. So trade season is coming. February 8th is the trade deadline. We're just a couple weeks away here. The Mavericks have been rumored to be in on a bunch of different power forwards. They want to get in on that 4 spot and improve. They need to improve at that spot. They've tried Grant Williams there to start the year, and that hasn't really worked for them as well as definitely I hoped, and probably as well as the Mavericks had hoped. And it's been a while. It's been a while. And so I don't know if we're getting a much better version of Grant Williams guaranteed. Could happen, but I don't know if it's guaranteed. Derrick Jones Jr. has been thrust in that role. I think he's better as a 3 spot. They've had, when Dante Exum and Derrick Jones Jr. can play together, but that hasn't really happened that often. And so how are they going to improve that spot? Omax hasn't really he could have been an awesome start in that spot, but he doesn't seem ready, which is totally fine for him. There's just a lot of things that they tried in that spot that haven't really worked. And so they're trying to upgrade in that spot. That's where they've been rumored all over the place. Now they've been rumored for a lot of other players. We'll talk about some of those too. But that seems to be the primary spot, and I agree that the Mavericks should improve that spot. That should be the primary spot the Mavs improve. Where the Mavericks are, though, they've got limited assets right now, especially if you are in the camp that I'm in, where I don't think they're going to try to trade a first this year because I think they want to try to save those for free agency this summer, where they'll have 3. 3 first just got the Pacers' Pascal Siakam. Okay? Think about that kind of an upgrade for the Mavericks. That's what you want to do this summer. So I don't think you want to put that in jeopardy. If you can do something that takes you a step forward this year with that first, then do it. If you think it'll take you forward. It's got to take you forward enough, though, because this team by the start of next season needs to be kind of a contender because the clock is ticking. Missed minutes is about to pop up and jump scare everybody into, oh my God, this team needs to be ready because the time was winding down here. So that's where I think the Mavericks are. That's what they're looking for. Another thing, I got 100 trades thrown at me. I don't think I'm exaggerating. 100 trades thrown at me on Twitter today when I put out this tweet. A lot of them had the Mavericks taking back a bunch of money, and it still kind of technically works out in Fanspo. That's the new trade machine that we're all using. And it still works out, the money will go back and forth. The problem is the Mavericks have 3.5, essentially. It's $3,461,696 million. That's how much they have. Basically $3.5 million of room between where they are and the next tax. I think it's the first apron is where they'll be. And you don't want to cross that. And so especially if you're just going to make an incremental, if you're not going to make the big move that pushes you forward, you don't want to be into that spot. And so I don't think they're going to make a move that puts them into that spot, especially if it's real close. I saw a couple that was the Mavs are taking back. They're going $5 more million in. I'm well, that just puts them right ahead. Now they do have Like Markieff Morris, non-guaranteed that they could just waive. And so maybe that's something that they think about. But that's something I think about in some of these trades, that I'll just say no automatically to some of them because it puts them in a bad financial position. It's not about paying it anymore. It's about the limitations that those apron levels put you in with what you can do going forward. The other part is Josh Green. I've seen Josh Green in a lot of trades. He's on a poison pill deal. That means that he's making only a certain amount this year, and he'll make more next year because of that extension. And it's hard to trade a guy like that. And it just doesn't happen very often. And, he's making 4.7 this year, and it'll jump up to 12.6 because of the extension. It's just very hard to trade some of those guys. The other thing, and the Mavericks need to make a move. They've made a move in each of the last 7 trade deadlines. I think that they'll make a move this year. Brad Townsend brought that up, that they've made a move in each of the last 7 trade deadlines. They've also, or around trade deadline. They've also made a move in 9 of the last 11. That's a lot. That's 2 different regimes for front office leaders, but still. Magic Johnson also on Twitter, the ever truther, said, looking at the Western Conference, I think the world champion Nuggets, the Clippers, the Timberwolves, and the Thunder don't need a trade. The Lakers, Pelicans, Suns, the Mavericks, the Warriors, and the Kings definitely need to make some trade before the deadline. Magic said it. The Mavericks have done it, and I think the Mavericks will do it again. One more thing. I'm doing the Isaac.
Peace out.
I'm doing the Isaac before. One more thing. Herb Jones has been brought up a bunch. He would be amazing. He would definitely be one that I would definitely give up a first-round pick for. He would be somebody that I would look at all right, what assets do you want? New Orleans will give it to you. Mark Stein reported this weekend, quote, it was relayed to me in strong terms over the weekend that the Pelicans, contrary to one recent report, are not open to fielding offers on defensive ace Herb Jones. So that goes contrary to the other rumor that we heard recently that they were interested. I'm going to believe Mark Stein on this one, and so we'll see. It was also funny that 1 year ago, like February 8th, 2022, Mark Stein made this exact same report that Herb was off limits in trade talks. So it's funny that they're like a year apart. Let's talk about PJ Washington. I think it's time for the Mavericks to buy low. If they want to make one of these incremental steps forward, and that's what I think they're going to do, just take one more step forward. PJ Washington, I think, could be the guy that they turn to and that they do. And I think he should be one of those guys. He's 6'7". He's not going to give him a ton of size, but he's a big dude. He is 25 years old, a power forward center. He's played a lot of small. Stop me if you've heard this before. Not tall, but a big dude. Power forward that has played some small ball center and can do a lot of things on the court, but doesn't do a ton of things well. Doesn't that sound like Grant Williams to you? They tried with Grant Williams. It has not worked. So maybe PJ Washington can be what they envisioned Grant Williams to be. He's down in pretty much every statistical category this season. A lot of advanced stats are down for him. The team is worse defensively when he's out there and all that. He's just having a down year. The Hornets are just having a down year all of a sudden. He's down 3 points per game. He's down, he's down some defensive numbers. He's down 3-point shooting by like 20 percentage points. He's down in his, free throws per game. He's down in his shots per game by 2. Like, it's just a down year. He's down in his starts. Last year, he started all 73 games for the Hornets. This year, he's only started 16 out of 35 games. Like, he's just down in all these categories. And they went, and remember, we talked about him a lot this offseason. If you listen to the show, if you're part of the Raccoon Squad, you've listened and know that he was a restricted free agent this summer. And I thought that maybe the Mavericks would be in on him when they were looking for a Grant Williams type, basically. They were trying to fill this forward spot that Dorian Finney-Smith left. That they would maybe go after him. And then there was the whole thing about how Dallas is in his location bio and his profile. And there's all about how he, is from here and all that kind of stuff. He has lived here. He was born in Kentucky and went to Kentucky for school, but he lived here at some point. I think went to high school here. And then he ended up signing the restricted free agent, as a restricted free agent with the Hornets. He signed for $16.8 million this year, $15.5 next year, and then $14 the year after that. He's a descending contract. That's very positive right now. And so I think it's time to look at PJ Washington coming to the Mavericks. Coming up, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I think that the Mavericks should buy low. I told you why they are buying low, but let me tell you why I think it's a smart thing for them to do that. We'll talk about that and more coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Hungry Root. Hungry Root will help you if you're trying to eat healthier. I'm one of those. I've always I just got to find the thing that helps me, that gets me to eating healthier. And I'm always trying new things. I'm always trying to plan out my meals, make it easier for me. Hungry Root is here to rescue you from short-lived resolutions by making meal planning easy and nutritious. Build healthy habits that won't disappear by February with Hungry Root. Whether you're braving the cold or dealing with crowds, grocery shopping this time of the year can be the worst. It really is. I feel like I'm spending $150 anytime I go to the grocery store, basically. Hungry Root makes it easier for everyone to eat healthy. They support all major diets and lifestyles, including gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, dairy-free, low-carb, and others. It's all kinds of stuff that you can get. It's the easiest way to get fresh, high-quality food delivered to your door. They've got healthy groceries and simple recipes all in one. You just take a fun, short quiz, and Hungry Root will get to know you, your goals, and how you like to eat, and they'll ask you what flavors you like and all that kind of stuff, what kitchen appliances you use, all that stuff. They're like, wow, this is tailor-made for me. And then they'll go beyond your grocery haul with thousands of easy recipes that actually put your groceries that you buy and that you get to good use. I always buy that one thing that I never use. There's always a package of mushrooms or something in the back of my fridge that I just forget to use. Right now, Hungry Root is offering Locked On NBA listeners 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedon to get 40% off your first delivery and free veggies. That's hungryroot.com/lockedon. Don't forget to use the link hungryroot.com/lockedon. Also, want to tell you about eBay Motors. eBay Motors has you covered with all the car. I almost went straight into a different. With all the car parts that you could ever need. Go check out and see what they have available for you. Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home a winning trophy, the Mavericks in 2011. That's what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle. They have superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is, huh? Anybody?
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you that are doing that have been part of this show, part of this community, commenting on YouTube, coming up to me at games. Love that. I'm in section 123. I'll be there for the Suns game, so hope to see you guys there. All right, Isaac, let's get into the rest of these trade rumors. PJ Washington. I think it's time to buy low on PJ Washington because, like I said, all of his statistical things are down this year. But I think he's capable of being a player that could really fit what the Mavericks want to do. I think he could be in that Grant Williams role that they envisioned earlier in this season. Look at last year. The reason why he got some money. His three-point percentage has gone down each year since his second year basically in the league. I think the Mavericks can get that back up. I think they can get him some more open shots. I think that they can put him in a spot that'll be better for him. And I think that will be, that he'll be in a better spot. He can get his shot a little bit better than what Grant Williams can. He's averaged 2 assists a game his entire career. I think he's a better passer definitely than Grant Williams. And I think the Mavericks in that short roll spot where Luka and Kyrie are getting doubled, I think he could be excellent in that. I think the Mavericks could finally find a small ball defense, like a small ball lineup that works with PJ Washington at the 5 at times. I just think that he would fit what the Mavericks want. And if you're going to look at some of his advanced numbers, some of the ones I mentioned earlier that are down this year, look no further than the Hornets are just having an awful year. Look at him with PJ Washington with Mark Williams. Mark Williams is a pretty good comp to Derek Lively as far as a young center that, is a pretty good defensive, was supposed to be really good defensively, rim roller, all that. This year, PJ Washington and Mark Williams together on the floor. The Hornets have 122 defensive rating. Awful, terrible. Last year, those same two guys together on the floor had a 109.7 defensive rating. It's possible. Just looking at that, it's possible for PJ Washington to be in a good defense and to be part of a good defense and be part of that and to pair with a guy like Derek Lively in Mark Williams and they can have a good defense. And so I think he can help the Mavericks in that area. Like I said, he's 6'7", so he's not the biggest, but he's still a big body. The Mavericks have struggled with him at times. And I just think he's a guy that can do a lot of things that would help the Mavericks going forward. And all those things, I think you're buying low. And I think you're buying low on what he could be right now. Look at what they just did with Terry Rozier. They just traded him for a first and Kyle Lowry's contract. The Heat got off of Kyle Lowry's contract. The Hornets took back some more money, I'm pretty sure, and they got a first-round pick for it. And so if PJ Washington is worth less than what Terry Rozier is, which I think he would be, then I think you're getting him for a lower price. Now, the Hornets did just get rid of Terry Rozier. They've got a need for that. We had all the Locked On hosts fill out what they think their team wants and what they think their team would want to give away and all that kind of stuff. And I asked the Hornets guys, and the Hornets guys said they want cap flexibility, star talent, a big who can shoot, anyone who can shoot. That was the last thing. They just got rid of Terry Rozier. Let's try some of these trades. And some of these you guys sent me in. Some of these I just made up. I think I've got 4 trade options for PJ Washington to the Mavericks. And tell me if you think that these are worth it. Either in your car by yourself or in the comments or on Twitter. Doesn't matter to me. PJ Washington for Hardy, Holmes, 2 seconds. To me, I think that would be a good trade overall. The Hornets get, Jaden Hardy, who's a young guy that they can build up. He's like kind of in that Terry Rozier mold. So they replace that with a guy that they can grow. Richaun Holmes' contract will be expiring next year, so it's not that terrible for them financially. And then you get 2 seconds out of it too. And if you want to change it up a little bit, you could replace Holmes with you can replace Holmes with Grant Williams, take one of the seconds out of it, and it's Hardy and Grant in a second for PJ Washington. Then you're taking 2 of those assets, Hardy and the seconds, with either upgrading for Grant exactly or taking Holmes' contract and then adding PJ Washington with Grant, which makes a pretty good twosome in that 4 spot. You can play them together even. If Grant turns it around, then all of a sudden you got PJ and Grant that are big bodies you can throw at some dudes. If you're just getting PJ Washington, that's good. I think those would work. Also think about, you've got to give up stuff to get stuff in the NBA. So for all you that are saying, don't get rid of Hardy, don't get rid of the seconds, we'll need you got to get rid of stuff to get stuff. If you want to add Nick Richards to it, he's a 7-foot center. He's kind of like, he's been their backup center. He's started for them with Mark Williams out here and there. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing with him. But if you want to throw him in there, maybe it's Hardy, Curry, Holmes into 2 seconds. Maybe it's Hardy, Grant, Holmes in 2 seconds. And maybe you can snag Nick Richards in there as well. They've got Mark Williams already. I'm not exactly sure what they're doing, but maybe that's just a throw in that you can just kind of snag from the Hornets already. That's what I think about PJ Washington. I think it's time to buy low on him because I think that he's having a down year. I think he can be better if he gets out of this Hornet situation. Think about Spencer Dinwiddie with the Wizards. Think about, some of these players we've seen in the past go from bad teams back to good teams. And all of a sudden you're like, man, what Aaron Gordon is all of a sudden this amazing, I think that he could be a mini version of that for the Mavericks. And I think that the Mavericks do have the assets to get him. And I think he could be just a step forward. He's younger. He's on the books for 3 more years. His contract is descending. He does a lot of things the Mavericks would want. He's not perfect, right? He's not the perfect Mavericks option on the trade, but it's a possible one. Coming up, let's talk about some of the Wizards guys. Let's talk about some of your other trades too. You guys sent me a ton of trades, so I want to rapid fire through some of these. We'll talk about that coming up. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. You can place all kinds of bets. I'm looking at Lions 49ers. 7-point spread for Lions 49ers. I don't think the Lions are going away. I don't think that they're going to go away into this good night that much. And so I think that they'll at least cover that 7. I think I would take the 7 in that. Do I know anything? Probably not. But if you are screaming at me saying you don't know what you're talking about, put money on San Francisco -7 and then do that. Put $5 down and you get $150 in bonus bets on FanDuel. They have same game parlays, that new Explore tab, the Parlay Hub, which is always fun. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Isaac, let's get into the other trades you guys sent me. Bunch of trades for the Wizards guys. I don't think Kyle Kuzma is getting traded to the Mavericks. I don't think they have enough, but here's some trades you guys sent me to try and get Kuzma and Gafford. That would address 2 needs the Mavericks have, backup center and starting power forward or starting wing, starting 4. It would address both needs. Could you do Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, Omax, and Holmes? Technically, numbers-wise, it works. That one's interesting to me. You're losing Tim and you're losing Josh Green in the rotation. Omax and Holmes aren't in it, but they are in your future. You bring in Kuzma, you bring in Gafford, so you got a backup center now who can spot start for you, and you feel good about it. Kuzma, who I think can be part of a playoff team and can be in that, but I'm just not sold that he's the answer. If all it takes is Tim, Josh Green, Omax, you keep your first, that way you can still take another move forward. I kind of think about that one. We don't know that Omax is going to be a good player. I believe he's going to be, but I don't know for sure. If you take Omax out of that one, Kuzma and Gafford 4, Tim Hardaway, Josh Green, Jaden Hardy, Rashawn Holmes in 2 seconds. So I think you're giving up less in that one, but it is Hardy in the 2 seconds. Josh Green, trading Josh Green is kind of hard, but in these ones I think it would work. So those are kind of interesting trades for me. If you could get both of those guys, I don't think that either of these get it done though, to be honest. But teams have asked for 2 seconds or 2 firsts for a player before and have not gotten them. So just because the Wizards asked for 2 firsts for Kyle Kuzma doesn't mean that they're going to get it. Now they have him under contract for a couple more years, so they could just wait on it. What are they losing, right? Are the Wizards losing time? Like all they have is time because they're not waiting out a Luka contract or something like that. Just Daniel Gafford by himself, I think this is definitely more realistic than a Kuzma and Gafford combo. I think Gafford and Andre Drummond are probably the 2 backup centers that I'm looking at if the Mavericks try and go after it. The problem is Gafford starts for the Wizards, so are they going to really want to give him up? Gafford for Holmes and Hardy. That feels like a trade that the Wizards would do, right? Like, so you get, Holmes' contract, you get Hardy, so you get a guy that you can build up. They've tried a bunch of guards before, the Johnny Davis that hasn't worked and, all that. And so maybe Hardy is the one that actually works for him. Hardy feels like did I almost say that? Did you just hear that? Did you just hear what I almost said? Talk about the intrusive thoughts winning. Hardy feels like a player that the Wizards would really want. Let's say it like that. Let's say it like that instead. Oh, God. If you don't want to do Hardy, then Holmes in both seconds. Holmes in 2 seconds for Daniel Gafford. Doesn't that feel like a trade deadline deal that's like the first one that gets done? And everyone goes, wait, are we all about to start talking about Daniel Gafford to the Mavericks for 2 seconds? And Rashawn Holmes, like, are we all about to start talking? And then all of a sudden, all the other trades come in after that. That one to me feels like a pretty realistic trade. And the Wizards just start grabbing a bunch of picks and then just start trying the OKC route. Denny Avdija is a player that's been brought up to me a lot. The Mavericks have inquired about him. Mark Stein did report that. To me, I think Denny Avdija would be an interesting player for the Mavericks. He's 23. He was the 9th pick in 2020. So the same draft as Josh Green. He's been a good defender. He's become a pretty good playmaker. He's averaging about 4 assists a game this year, 12 points. His shot has kind of come along this year. He does a little of everything, but a big wing. And so maybe he's the guy going forward that if you're like, all right, we just need to get a couple of these guys. So let's say they do get Denny and then they have Omax, and then 2-3 years from now, the Mavericks would be in a real good spot with some big wings. Maybe that works out for you. Rashawn Holmes in a first. Does that make it happen? I don't think that's enough for, maybe it's a first in 2 seconds, but then all of a sudden, you're giving up that first, and then you can't take that big step forward this offseason. I don't think Denny is the guy to do that. And he's kind of like a weird poison pill contract where he's making $6 million this year, and then after that, it'll be 15.5, 14, 13, and about 12. His contract's going down too, so that's maybe one you want to take advantage of. That's one where you've got to if I had done more Wizards scouting on him, maybe I'd be more down for, because he could be an Aaron Gordon type, right? He could be not the same athlete and the different style of player and all that, but a big wing with a descending contract on a team that's not very good that all of a sudden trades him away and then he goes into a better basketball context that makes him look better. That could happen. I could see that happening. I'm not 100% sure though. Haven't watched enough Wizards games. I'm not gonna lie. Have you watched enough Wizards games? No. Who has? Have the Locked On Wizards games? Have they watched them? Does a first get it done? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it would. Maybe it's Holmes, Hardy, and a first, and then all of a sudden it's getting a little complicated with, can you do Denny and Gafford and then try and combine it all together? Denny and Gafford does kind of make a lot of sense. You all of a sudden get younger. All right, let's talk about some rapid fire ones. These are fun. These were all submitted to me by you guys. Dorian, Spencer Dinwiddie for Tim Hardaway Jr., Grant Williams, and a first. I don't know that Dinwiddie has a lot of value right now. He's got the lowest field goal percentage in the league. He tweeted about that and wondered why no one was talking about any of the context for it. He's got the lowest field goal percentage in the league. He's making $20 million, and he's got just this 1 year left on his deal. Dorian Finney-Smith, they want 2 firsts for him. Same thing for Kuzma goes for Dorian Finney-Smith. Are they getting 2 firsts for him somewhere? And with the Mavericks first, maybe they throw those 2 seconds in. All of a sudden, the Mavs, in the aggregate, get back the 2 guys that they sent and that they kind of need right now. I do think that they need a Dinwiddie type, just a guy to handle the ball a little bit here and there. A bigger guard, could play next to either Kyrie or Luka at times. Knows the Mavs system, obviously. And then Dorian bringing back, I'm down for that. I don't think this is enough for the Nets. I don't think it is. But maybe you throw in a Jaden Hardy, couple of seconds. Maybe that does get it done. How much better would you feel about this team if it's Dorian and Dinwiddie plus everything else they already have? I'd probably feel better about it. Definitely better, but I don't know how much better I'd feel about it. Drummond, I told you at the top I would talk about Drummond. I think Drummond is the other backup center to look at because I don't think the Bulls are going anywhere, so I think they start selling off. Drummond's on 1 year, so they're going to lose him for nothing. Shouldn't they just get some seconds for him or something? You could send Drummond for Markieff Morris in 2 seconds or a second. You could trade Curry again. It'd be like the 4th time they've traded Curry. Curry for Drummond in 2 seconds. Or Curry for Drummond. Would they do that? I don't know. But I feel like Drummond would come in and be the backup that, could help the Mavericks for sure. Since they now have the starting center. Like, I've been against Drummond in the past because he was supposed to come in and be the starting center and be the answer. Like, I didn't think he was that guy, but I do think he is the guy to play behind Lively if they've already got the guy that fits exactly what they want at the starting 5 spot. So that one's interesting. This is a trade I've brought up before that I think someone regurgitated to me, which is fine. Tim Hardaway and Seth Curry, for Quentin Grimes and Evan Fournier. Grimes is younger. He's a really good shooter. You take a step back this season because you're losing Tim. That one hurts. But you get a younger guy on a longer, in a longer term vision. And you're taking a swing for the future there. I think Quentin Grimes could help the Mavericks going forward. I don't know about that one though. Fournier, could the Mavs resurrect Fournier? Does he become could he be 70% of what Tim brings? Tim only brings what Tim brings 50% of the time. So do the math on that one. Could he be 35% of the 50% that Tim is 50% of the time? I don't know. That one's interesting. PJ Tucker. This one got brought up by Bobby Marks on his Mavs trade preview thing. PJ Tucker for Rashawn Holmes in a second. Bring PJ Tucker in. I'm not sold on him as a player coming in and fixing, but maybe he's the vet presence that the Mavs need. Maybe they just need one more vet presence guy that's been in playoff games and can teach Grant Williams how to be a better Grant Williams because he is what Grant Williams was. He's got this year at $11 million and then next year $11.5 million player option. So if you do it for Holmes, you're basically losing nothing. He's older, but he can shoot the 3 at least, and he's been in playoff settings, and I think Kid would trust him. So that one's pretty interesting. I'm kind of down for that one. You're not losing a whole lot. 1 second. Somebody else sent me this trade. Dwight Powell in 2 seconds for a usable 2024-25 in-season tournament floor. Can we get the in-season tournament floor working? We never got to see the Mavs one. I got this trade sent to me too. Kyrie Irving. I just heard a million gasps. Just heard several hundred gasps across the Metroplex. Kyrie Irving for Karl Anthony Towns. This same person sent me Kyrie for Zion Williamson. I can't decide which one of those is worse and which one of those is better. Cat coming off of that big, what did he score? 50-point game the other night. Makes that more interesting, but I don't think either of those makes the Mavs better. The last one I got sent is a trade that the Mavericks would acquire a coach and that they would send Jason Kidd away and fire him. I got that 3 or 4 times. People just said fire Jason Kidd, which is not a trade, but it is a suggestion. there you go. That's all the trades. That's why I think you should buy low on PJ Washington. That's why I think that the Mavericks are going to make a move. Tomorrow, we'll be back. Me and Slightly will have the Mavs-Suns game for you. We do every single post game on this show. Dana Larson will be back on Thursday night going into Friday, and then Mavs-Hawks on Friday as well. Mavs-Kings on Saturday. You're just sticking with me 5 days a week. Sometimes 6, sometimes 7. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom!